Welcome to the only daily podcast focusing on compliance news of the day. Each morning, start your day with a cup of coffee and Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, to hear about 4 of the top compliance, corruption, or leadership stories you will need to start your day. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
May 21, 2021, the Too Little, Too Late edition. And we begin with that story from the Washington Post. Colonial Pipeline, remember them? The pipeline that got hit by a ransomware attack, and because they couldn't figure out how much gas people were buying, they shut down their system before paying a ransom. Well, they didn't have a cybersecurity manager. Really? No surprise there. What idiotic. This is just beyond belief. In this day and age, they did not have a cybersecurity manager, but they're hiring. So are you a cybersecurity expert and you want to have one of the most challenging jobs, public high profile jobs around? I'm sure they're paying top dollar right now. So shoot your resume over to Colonial Pipeline because they're hiring. Next up, from CNN rather, Tim Cook is scheduled to field questions from Congress about Apple's market power. He did, and now he's about to be grilled for the first time in federal court. The iPhone maker's chief executive is set to take the stand Friday morning as part of the company's high-profile antitrust trial with Epic Games, i.e. Fortnite, nears an end. Epic accuses Apple of exercising monopolistic control over its walled garden of iOS operating systems, with app makers forced into onerous restrictions if they want access to hundreds of millions of iPhone and iPad users. Well, of course Apple does this. The question is their market power so great that this constitutes a monopoly? Next up, from the New York Times, the U.S. backs a global minimum tax of at least 15% to curb profit shifting offshore. This has certainly been a goal of many administrations, but now the Biden administration is looking to reach deals with countries that fear hiking their tax rates will defer development. The rate was lower than an expected proposal from the U.S., and the Treasury Department hailed its positive reception among countries in breakthrough negotiations. Of course, the Republicans opposed this because they were opposed any taxes, but it would certainly help the U.S. in raising its corporate taxes back to a reasonable level after the disastrous Trump tax cut. A deal over global minimum tax would allow the U.S. to make the increase without putting American companies at a disadvantage. And our final story comes from the Wall Street Journal. A lawsuit accuses MacDonald's of racially discriminatory ad spending. 2 companies owned by media mogul Byron Allen have filed a lawsuit against McDonald's, accusing it of discrimination against black-owned media companies. The lawsuit targets what the companies allege are the restaurant's discriminatory contracting processes and refusal to advertise on the plaintiff's networks on the basis of race. The suit makes the latest move by Mr. Allen to pressure U.S. companies to spend more dollars on black-owned media companies. It's certainly an interesting claim and an interesting approach. And if companies' spending is now going to be subjected to a racial analysis, this could really open the floodgates to a much higher risk of litigation. Of course, companies have not been known for their racial sensitive spending with subcontractors generally, so this could certainly be a good thing to force corporations to actually do what they say they're doing. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network and a proud member of C-Suite Radio. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow.